crime against humanity and a threat to international peace and security. My name is Chris Landsberg. Welcome to Tracing the Past. How foolish and even reckless for former President F.W. de Klerk to walk into a proverbial hornet's nest. How could he even utter the notion that apartheid was no crime against humanity? So why don't we help the former president by taking him down that dreadful, repugnant memory lane? So, President de Klerk, by the time you became president in 1989, South Africa became one of the most isolated states in the world, a rotten polecat. Why? Because of the brutal system of apartheid racism and white supremacy in a land which the settlers came to rob from the indigenous population. By this criminal act, it did not start in 1948 when the National Party had the sheer audacity to institutionalize white privilege at the expense of the black population. On 26 May 1948, the National Party won the whites-only election and immediately proceeded to give formal sanction to their policy of apartheid, something that they have believed in prior to this. They enacted a range of discriminatory and repressive laws, such as the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act of 1949, the Group Areas Act, the Population Registration Act, the Immorality Amendment Act, and the Suppression of Communism Act, to mention a few. The United Nations and anti-apartheid movements at home and abroad, and victims of suppression and oppression, began their condemnation of apartheid as early as the 1940s. So in June 1952, for example, a non-violent campaign of defiance against unjust laws, the Defiance Campaign, was launched by the ANC, the African National Congress, and the South African Indian Congress, as they deliberately broke apartheid laws in defiance of the white state. More than 8,000 persons from all race groups were imprisoned by the apartheid state. 1 year later, in 1953, the South African white minority government in Pretoria passed the Criminal Law Amendment Act, and on top of that, the Public Safety Act, which empowered them to mete out fines, lashes, imprisonment of citizens. Anti-apartheid actors were effectively criminalized for defying the law and for incitement. So opponents to apartheid were not deterred, and on 26 June 1955, the ANC and other organizations organized the Congress of the People in Kliptown, Johannesburg, and some 3,000 delegates attended to draw up the Freedom Charter. This again was only met with a tit for tat, as the apartheid government in 1956 broadened and extended its draconian pass laws as it extended it to African women. But African women retaliated, and on 9 August 1956, they reacted with a massive women's march on the Prime Minister's office in the Union Buildings under the banner, "You struck a woman, you struck a rock." In 1981, this day was recognized by the UN as the International Day of Solidarity with the women of South Africa and Namibia. And even today, we commemorate 9 August as the all-important Women's Day. By the 1960s, apartheid united the world in ways that few other issues could. Following the dreadful Sharpeville massacre, during which 69 people were brutally killed and more than 200 injured. That was now be commemorated as Human Rights Day on 21 March. The Special Committee Against Apartheid in the UN was created, institutionalizing punitive action against the white-ruled republic. In 1963, the UN Security Council agreed to a voluntary arms embargo against South Africa by member state. And in the ensuing years, the world body appealed to governments and international organizations to tighten oil and arms embargoes and institute sports and cultural boycotts against Pretoria. But here are two crucial dates that I would like us to focus on now. President de Klerk and other denialists. 1966 and 1973 are these dates. So in 1966, the UN General Assembly, in Resolution 3068, unanimously denounced apartheid as a crime against humanity. But the real fork in the road, so to speak, came in 1973, when the UN General Assembly adopted the International Convention on the Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid. So to quote Article 1 of that convention, the state parties to the present convention declare that apartheid is a crime against humanity. Not only did apartheid starkly violate the UN Charter, it gave third world states a rallying point in their battle for recognition from industrialized imperialist powers, an issue whose morality was so clear that the latter could not adopt a contrary position. The Afro, Asian, Caribbean states set out to turn the UN into a mechanism through which intrastate race relations became a principle of interstate international relations. There was a deeply held belief in the UN Africa Group that apartheid was so despicable that it ruled out the prospect of dialogue and negotiation with Pretoria. In 1974, the UN General Assembly deprived the South African government of its right to participate in UN activities following the rejection of its delegation's credentials. That government was not regarded as worthy of representing this indigenous population. The death in detention of black conscious leader Stephen Bantu Biko on 12 September 1977 sparked widespread global condemnation of the apartheid government. Biko's death and apartheid in general prompted the Security Council in 1977 to impose a mandatory arms embargo on Pretoria. The first time this body had taken such action against a member state under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. In December 1978, the General Assembly rejected the so-called independence process of Bantustans. So 1978 and 1979 were declared anti-apartheid years. The year 78 saw more than half the meetings of the Security Council devoted to Southern Africa and persistent threats of mandatory punitive action against apartheid South Africa. A typical example is the General Assembly's reaffirmation in January 1979 of the legitimacy of the struggle of the oppressed people of South Africa and their national liberation by all available and appropriate means, including armed struggle, for the seizure of power by the people, and the full exercise of the right of self-determination by the people as a whole. The white minority government was delegitimized and the national liberation movements popularized as the authentic representatives of the people as a whole. Apartheid was defined as a unique form of international aggression. The UN passed an avalanche of resolutions branding its crime against the conscience and dignity of mankind, as well as a threat to international peace and security. The UN, the Organization of African Unity, the Non-Aligned Movement, all worked closely with the ANC and PAC and other liberation movements to maintain detailed surveillance of and curtail Pretoria's ties with the world. Their objective was to gradually and systematically isolate the apartheid state. The OAU and NAM also declared apartheid a crime against humanity. South Africa was expelled from many organizations, including the International Atomic Energy Agency, the ILO, and from cultural, sports, and academic activities. The ILO, the International Labour Organization, labeled apartheid criminal and inhumane in the early and mid-1980s. The P.W. Botha regime banned political gatherings and arrested and detained thousands of activists. P.W. Botha declared a repressive state of emergency in July 1985, and eventually by 1986, a year later, 8,500 protesters were in detention. While government unleashed its fury on the domestic population, the white minority, white regime unleashed its apartheid army on the frontline states, Angola, Botswana, Mozambique, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, through its destabilization campaign under the banner of a total strategy to fight a perceived communist-inspired total onslaught. So to conclude, there is no doubt that apartheid was an abominable crime against humanity. It was also a threat to the international peace and security because it was so declared. But you see, even if apartheid was not declared as such, an act of brutal colonization and apartheid racism through a minority regime come to an indigenous population and usurp its land, culture, language, dignity, and systematically oppress and repress them, that must be regarded as a serious crime against a people, whether it is declared as such or not. I hope we help to answer the question whether apartheid is a crime against humanity or not. You be the jury. Thank you very much.
For unbiased, uncensored news updates, rely on Galaxy News. We are fearless, zero favor, and zero fiction.
We are the bridge that connects you from the rural to the urban.
From Times Square to Mary Fitzgerald Square, we're sure to give you the hottest stories from all four corners of the globe.
Bringing the latest news on business trends at the speed of light and transporting you to a world unseen.
Now so we come fly, go enter Lagos. The Zanga, inside Zanga for Lagos.
From the boardroom to the fan park and to the field.
Op ons kanaal nuus wat jou sal skok en verras.
Sources at the ranks, banks and all places buzzing with action.
Sports, business, politics, your entertainment, fashion trends. We're talking of breaking news, exclusive and certainly the hottest stories in town.
For Galaxy News, I am Vuyo Mgwelo.
Now maybe this your boy, Osilama Otono.
Itabakheng Khatri from Galaxy News.
I am Katla Mkhambanyane from Galaxy News.
I am Susanda Nomosaka Qabe Kuto for Galaxy UN.
as by Skelem Tina.